Hi, everyone. Welcome to the DC Comics News Weekly podcast. I'm your host, Seth Singleton. This is episode number 180, and I am joined, thankfully, so thankfully, by Mr. Brad Palicki. You know him as Palicki Fashions. He is the voice from the East Coast, bringing us all the knowledge and the wisdom. We got you covered on two ends of the country. Brad, how you doing, bud?
Good. How you doing?
Doing good. I don't know if I've just totally slipped into like my radio voice personality, but for some reason, as I was going, I was like, yeah, I just want to go ahead and start just, throwing it out. He's the flinger of flam. He's the, you know what I mean? And yeah, I just need to dial it in, dial it in, dial it in. We're playing with time a little bit today. And with that in mind, we're going to give you the best of everything we've got coming our way: movies, TV, streaming, comic books, a little bit of other. Our first story leading us off: The Flash, suffering a bit of a drop off in its second box office weekend. Numbers saying that a 70% drop seen from the first weekend, and now with the movie around 14 to 16 million. Brad, what's your thoughts on the headline, the numbers? How you feeling?
It's a bummer. It's disappointing, but I can't say it was unexpected. Um, this is a weird case because it seems like everybody who's seen the movie has actually liked it. It's just a matter of getting people there to see it. I think it's a combination of the Ezra Miller factor combined with the fact I think people since COVID they don't want to go to movie theater, and things come to streaming so quickly they'll just think, well, I'll just wait a few weeks. I wish that there was a way to reimagine, recodify what success means with these movies somehow. Because I think once this hits streaming, I think it's going to have a lot more legs. I think people are going to be talking about this movie um, in the future. It's just it's a shame because it is a fun it's a good movie, so yeah, it's a bummer, but I can't say it was unexpected. What about you?
I'm very interested in what the final breakdown might be for what the reasons were behind. I, for the first time myself, ventured out, and I don't go to movies a lot right now. I've said it on more than one occasion here that I'll wait for it to come to streaming. I don't know that there is an environment yet for me in theaters there I feel safe enough. And a couple weeks back, I got sick with COVID. And the most I did was go to an outdoor horse show or horse eventing, support my wife. It was outdoor. I was pretty much 6 feet away from most strangers. I felt like I was doing a lot of precautions. I've already been vaccinated a number of times, and I still got sick. So the idea of getting into a closed place with people just doesn't encourage me. I don't know if there are others out there like that, but I can see their position right now. There has been these upticks in the summer. And then I also know that because I did venture out on Friday, go to an art show, I was talking with someone about the Flash. One of the people who I was supporting is a local artist. He does comic books. He's written and drawn his own. And he just asked me, "Did you go see the Flash?" And I said, "No." Explained all the things I just mentioned about the theater, and then we went on to talk about the fact that yes, there's an Ezra Miller equation that is different from other superhero films. We did see something similar with Shazam, where there was a social media sort of flurry right around the opening, and that changed the direction of things in a lot of people's minds. Maybe it made the flaws more glaring. I don't know. Ezra Miller's story has been building it for a long time. And one of the questions that came up in conversation was, we're back to that situation of how do you separate the art from the artist? Does one actor in a program or a movie change the direction? How is it there are people that can really draw lines between Michael Jackson and R. Kelly? There's ideas in people's minds about the art and the artist. And right now, caught in the conflict is what I think, from what you've described and others have said, a beautiful movie, a really gift for movie fans, and superhero fans. But I don't know what the balance is going to look like. I do think you brought up a really interesting point. I like the idea of there being a different clock to measure this by, a different scale. When you looked at the numbers that they're talking about, we saw a similar drop off with Quantumania. We saw, Shazam came in. I think it had maybe 12, 13 million more than The Flash in its opening, compared like 72 million, I think 83 something. So The numbers are close. The drop off feels significant because of what's expected from the movie, especially trying to launch the second half of James Gunn vision. And I think there's going to be conflicts. I think what also I'm just going to say is that it sets up really interesting the next conflict that we're going to see with our next story, which is the fact that James Mangold is trying to do a Swamp Thing movie, but he said it's going to be a standalone. And there's been so much emphasis on the connection of a new vision and a new universe. How does a project like that work? I'm talking about the story we have saying that James Mangold views Swamp Thing as a standalone film. Will that work in the Safran James Gunn universe, or is this something that, you know, won't happen, or it's just going to have to wait for the timing to be right? Is it possible?
I think this is a little bit of a non-story story. I think that every filmmaker is going to have to, even with a franchise, even something part of the DCU, is going to have to go into it thinking as one complete vision, one complete story, and a standalone. What they can bring from that, build from that, happens later. They just want to get a good story, a good product in front of people. So I think it is good to approach that in terms of a one-off. There's always the mid-credit and after-credit scene to connect it to other things. So I think that that's something that they can put in as kind of an afterthought for a more connected thing with DCU. But I think it's good to think of a self-contained story. Plus, it's going to be a horror movie, and I think that if you're going to do a really good horror movie, it you don't necessarily need to be thinking of sequels when you go into it. So uh, I don't blame Mangold for wanting to do that. I think it's a good idea. What about you?
I think it's an interesting approach. I do think that there's going to be a question of what do you do if it's successful and they want more. We're still kind of waiting to see what's going to happen with the Watchmen. And Lindelof made a really interesting point, Damon Lindelof, with this idea of, well, he pulled all the tricks out of the bag for that one. He doesn't know what else he could pull together that would make a really clean, cohesive, or a strong story. So Mangold could be in that position, but there's going to be the desire on the part of the two guys in charge right now to maybe do more if it's successful, or we know that Creature Commandos is coming. So the idea of a Swamp Thing movie doesn't sound far off, but the purpose behind it might be very different from Mangold's vision. And it's a question of whether or not those two things can find a compromise, or if it's just going to be a butting of heads and it's like, look, you can either do it this way or you can try again in so many years. I also get that right now he's out promoting Dial of Destiny, right? So he's got his best foot forward. There's a lot of interest in this newest Harrison Ford, continuing a franchise, showing the ability to tell a story that's potentially about a character we've heard, and had a lot of stories about. How do you make that fresh and new? If he's successful, maybe this sort of pitch sounds better. Like, okay, maybe you can bring the originality and the vision, but that could be a bit of a leap. Much like the fact that in our next story, we're talking about whether or not Gal Gadot still has a future within the DCEU. And there's a chance maybe we're it's this idea of whether or not she could be back. And, there was a recent interview with Total Film, again, who I'm getting this from. She's talking about the idea of doing her own projects, going to work as an actress for hire still, but she's passionate about ideas. And there's a suggestion that this could be her saying, that she's going to get involved with another DC related movie. She says things are being worked behind the scenes. Once the right moment arrives, you'll know about it. Is that enough to say, yeah, it's happening, or
I think that yes, it's going to happen, but the degree to which is up in the air because I was just looking at the story to pull up that exact quote that you just said. When things are happening behind the scenes, when it's ready, you'll know it. Well, that could mean anything because she's. I'm just going to put it out there and say she has done numerous cameos at this point. So does that mean are we seeing her in more cameo roles? But we all want to see her in more than that. So if they would come back and say, "Hey, she's going to be Wonder Woman," I'd be all for it. She seems like she was made to play the part. So I would be totally happy if they said, "Yeah, she's going to be the new Wonder Woman still going forward. We're not the new Wonder Woman, but Wonder Woman's still going forward. I'd be totally happy with that. But I think that in some ways we're definitely going to get to see her as Wonder Woman again. For all we know, it could be that she's writing like a Wonder Woman miniseries for DC or something. You just don't know what that could possibly mean. So I'm open, but I hope it happens. I guess in any way, shape, or form, I hope it happens. What about you?
Yeah, I hope it happens. That's my yeah. Yeah, I hope it happens. I hope there's something. What that something is going to look like, as you pointed out, I recently got a chance to catch Shazam because it's on streaming now, and now I can catch up on Fury of the Gods and see that she makes an appearance. But that was something I felt like I'd already seen expressed in social media and other platforms already, so I kind of knew it was coming. But yes, what does the next iteration of her? Is it a short cameo? Could she play a really interesting role, becoming like a senior level character? There's the Paradise series that's mentioned in the story. There's also a few ideas about, what would it look like if we followed what's going on in the comics right now? There's a Justice League that disbands. There's a Teen Titans that fills the role for right now. She'd be a great sort of senior character to come in and like, hey, pass the torch. Maybe there for a little bit of the beginning of the first movie and then move out. Whatever the planning might be, as you said, there could even be a miniseries in place. I would enjoy that. But you'll know when we tell you, it doesn't leave us with a lot. Just like, unfortunately, and this is a perfect transition, the Flash star Sasha Calle has had a meeting about her Supergirl future with Peter Safran, and she walks out of it saying, I hope to continue playing Supergirl. And I'm like, you just had the meeting. You say you had the meeting, but that's all you're able to keep saying is, I hope. And I'm not sure. Is that enough to say, yeah, there's going to be, is something to do with the Flash movie playing a factor into whether or not they're going to decide? What are your thoughts on that? I mean, because we're jumping now from a character who's been around and been in a bunch of stuff to a new one who just got on the scene and yet still sounds just as uncertain, right?
Yeah, I mean, I everybody was hoping that the Flash would do better, and I think that if had it done better, she'd be on much more firmer ground. And it's certainly not her fault. Actually, the article also states how fans have been responding positively to her portrayal into the character. So I would like to see her keep up with the character somehow. I don't. I kind of doubt that could be in the Supergirl Woman for Tomorrow movie that's coming out. Maybe, but I'm kind of doubtful. Yeah, I just don't think it looks good at this point. But you know, you never know. You never know. But I'm rooting for her.
I could see Sasha Calle doing a Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow. That actually kind of works for me. It doesn't kind of. It definitely works for me. Like, I think of the opening scenes of that book, Supergirl, finding a planet with a red sun so she can party her butt off for 21st, and then being a little bit just sort of like, what is happening now? And I feel like she can capture the grit, and there's like a Western feel to it that reminds me of Logan and other projects, but also like a long, I can't think of the movie now, but there was a recent remake that reminded me. It was like an older actor in a Western. He's with a younger character, and they're off to rescue some folks. And it has that True Grit. Thank you. Yeah, see, this is where I have the COVID brain still. So, yeah, I feel like there's a feeling of that would work really well. And I feel she would be a great casting for a type of story like that. So my hopes, are still high, but it's hard to really ground it in anything when you get a lot of, well, I hope I can continue to, oh man, okay, well, you just had the meeting. And if that's all you can do right now, okay, I understand. Also, in our news stories, we have the fact that James Gunn has been talking about the fact by the Legacy auditions for Superman Legacy have been blowing him away. They're currently now underway, and he seems very enthusiastic about that. There's some great quotes going with it. What was your takeaway? Is this, enthusiasm the title mentions, is it backed?
I like the fact that he says these are some of the best actors I've ever worked with. That kind of really reflects his enthusiasm for the project. I like that he's filling us in as these steps go on. We've heard so many rumors. He's been trying to keep ahead of that rumor train, and now we know certain actors who are screen testing. Rachel Brosnahan, Nicholas Hoult. So it's good that he's still very enthusiastic and that he's filling us in. But I don't expect a lot of concrete news. I think it's going to be a lot of these little um, tweets here and there from him saying how it's going. I think it's going to be a while before we get anything more concrete than that. And maybe, given the bumpiness that Flash is facing right now, maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it is a good thing that Superman's not coming out until 2025. Maybe it'll give people a little bit of a breather when it comes to some of these DC characters on film. If it was up to me, I'd want to see it next year as soon as possible. But maybe it didn't, and maybe in the end it is good to wait a little bit. So, James Gunn, keep fighting the good fight. That's what I can say. What about you?
I agree that the enthusiasm and the emotion that comes across from this article comes out really well. I think it's exactly the sort of report you want to hear from auditions, right? That things are going well, that it's going to be such a hard choice, such an amazing selection, and it leaves it around there. Doesn't really give us too much more to go on. As we've mentioned, you mentioned so well, he's done a great job of shooting down rumors. So I think providing great tidbits like this, where there's not a lot to guess on, but there's great emotion to come from it, you can enjoy that without really needing to get bogged down in, well, who is it? And what is it? And when do we know? Hang out. Know that we're having a good time. It clearly sounds like things are going well. Take that to heart. Just like the fact that we now have the Blue Beetle rating, letting us know that the movie will receive a PG-13 for sequences of action and violence, language, and some suggestive references. I'm sold. How do you feel about a PG-13 rating?
If it was anything else, I'd have been shocked. If it was PG, I would be thinking it's playing it way too safe. Um, Superhero movies these days, most of them are going to be PG-13. They're going to have enough of that edge to get that 13. If they don't, then um, I wouldn't expect it to be too good. And I don't think that Blue Beetle is going to fit with an R rating. So I'd have been completely shocked if they said that Blue Beetle was going to be R. So this was that. I'd have been more shocked if it had been anything else, really. But I'm still looking forward to seeing it. What about you?
I'm definitely looking forward to seeing it. I'm really excited for the movie. And the moment I remembered the fact that this is about a teenager, I mean, I was like, wait a minute, language and suggestive situations or references, like, hello, teenagers. It's just part of the package. We're not all as mature as we'd like to think we were then. And I certainly was among the more immature. So there's that fact to keep in mind. And I also think, it's a great segue because our next story talks about how maturity can really cast an interesting light. Talking about the fact that Danny Elfman, he just turned 70. He's lived quite an amazing life, has quite a collection, and revealed that one of his biggest known projects, we're talking about the Batman 89 film score, is a project that he had to walk away from for a time just because of how difficult the setup was. And in order to get things the way he knew he needed to tell it, as he says, he could hear the music in his head already, that this was a strategy that ended up working for him. But it was also one of the more difficult times.
I like this story because I'm glad it turned out that he was able to come back and work, and because this may have been the thing even more than Oingo Boingo at the time that put Danny Elfman on my radar, even more than maybe the Simpsons theme song, but mainly it was his score for Batman. And I think he had a good point where he says that I didn't want to feel like I was just arranging Prince's songs. Like I wanted it to be kind of my own input as well. Not that who wouldn't want to work with Prince? I mean, that of course. So, but I think I see where he was coming from with that. But, in the end, I'm glad that they found space because Prince's songs and the score are, to me, two of the things that made that movie, really. Almost as much as Michael Keaton, Jack Nicholson, and Kim Basinger. That score is one of the more iconic scores of the 80s for sure. So I'm glad that it all worked out. I'm sure in some alternate universe somewhere it didn't, but I'm glad we live in the one where it did. What about you?
This is the right this is the right Earth for me. Yes, I agree. I thought it was a great story. I really enjoyed the way he points out, as you mentioned, that at the time Prince is this name. He's comparatively like, do you remember Oingo Boingo? Other than that, how is he trying to establish his name? And the way the arrangement would have been, he literally would have been the arranger for pop artists, brilliant talent. And as he points out, I'm trying to create a name. I'm trying to build what I know is mine. I also love the fact that his perseverance leads to them calling him back a month later. Then they're really on his case a lot about it. He doesn't really understand the presentation side until the director goes, play the march. He does. And then there you've got the producer standing up, conducting, which reminded me of being a kid listening to this and like conducting along and loving the emotion. And it was a really great story. I highly recommend it if you get a chance to check it out, comicbook.com, or you can just go to the GQ interview directly. But Danny Elfman at 70, telling some great stories, including this one here about Batman 89. Now, continuing with the Batman theme, providing us some great transition over into TV and streaming news, we have the revelation from Max, which just sounds weird now because I've got a friend named Max. So I'll be like, hey, Max, so they're talking about. So Max has revealed the official Penguin logo. I've got a quick snapshot of it. And I got to say, I'm lacking a degree of originality. There's that. That's what I'm seeing out of this. Brad, your thoughts, my friend?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but because it does look pretty much exactly like the Batman logo. It's same fonts and everything, but in a way, I think it works because it connects it to that world. Because right now, the multiverse and all these things going on with DC and who's part of what, it's a nice way to connect that to each other. Granted, it's still Colin Farrell, but I think it kind of anchors it into Matt Reeves' world. So I'll take it.
I'm not going to turn it away, but there is a part of me that goes, okay, already I can see it would have looked righteous with a black background and white lettering and the same font and everything, or kind of riffing Scarface, a white background with maybe a black and white split. A little too much Two-Face, but if you had a white background with the black lettering and the same font, I mean, that's Penguin, black and white. If you play with that, I really feel like there's something that would have captured. I agree with what you're saying about the multiverse stuff. I'm not arguing. I understand the thinking. It's just I kind of paused and went, I could have done. No, I'm kidding. I am not. There's someone out there who's 10,000 times more talented. And then there's 50 other people equally who did this. But what I can say is maybe I was just inspired with being a little quirky because our next story lets us know that, yes, Harley Quinn season 4 is debuting this year on July 27th. Today is June 25th. Folks, the countdown. We're talking like 30 in a couple of days and change. Brad, are you ready? Can we ever be ready?
This is like an early Christmas gift.
Christmas in July.
Yep, definitely. Yeah, that's amazing. Hitting right after San Diego, which I am going. I'm going to San Diego this year, so I'm hoping that they'll have like a screening or something, or a panel or something, because it's so close to the date. So yeah, I'm glad. I can't believe it's coming that quick. I can't believe it. When I read that story, I thought it was going to be, I don't know, maybe February or March. But the fact that we're getting it in July, I feel spoiled. What about you?
It's such a great gift, and it's also, I think, something that's going to tide us over. Maybe you'll get some news coming up soon, because it does mention in the story, what about Kite Man? Hell yeah. We know that there's this spinoff that's been talked about. We'd love to hear more about it. Maybe you'll be one of the first to get the breaking news on that if they end up doing a panel or some release or, showing some fun footage. Look forward to more reporting from Brad on that. Man, you have got to do some serious flicky fashion stuff between the cosplay, between the stories you're going to see. Like, it's just got to happen. I'm declaring it right there. It's done. Josh, mark me down as the one who says this is where we launch flicky fashions in all the necessary ways. So with that, our final TV and streaming news story. Well, we've had some changes. So Superman and Lois is coming back. There's a fourth season. It's going to be about 10 episodes. And unfortunately, we're not going to see maybe all of the characters we're used to seeing as often as we might like. We've got the revelation that there has been a demotion of 7 of the cast members from series regular to what falls into either featured guest star, something along those lines. Among those, Wola Parks, who is John Henry Irons, sharing what was then and now expired Instagram story, as reported by Deadline, with a teddy bear below a neon sign that said "looking for work." So clearly, there's going to be some openings in their schedule as well as the schedule of others. Brad, it's it's a tough trade-off. Like we get to keep the show, but we're losing some regulars. A couple of others in there I didn't mention. Anyone stick out for you that was like, wow, that's really big changes?
Not really. I kind of could expect that. I think what they're going to focus on is the Lex Luthor angle for these final 10 episodes. And that having a little bit of a brain fart right now, but that actor, he's been made a regular now. So I think we're going to see that villain, the Lex Luthor angle, is going to be a really big focus. And I think that if it had been a longer season instead of just 10 episodes, they wouldn't have had to make them reoccurring special guest stars. They would have been able to squeeze them in for bigger roles. But I think in the end, as a fan, I feel bad for the actors, but as a fan, I'm just glad we're getting 10 more episodes so that they can wrap the story up on their terms and not something that's dictated so much by the network. Even though I guess it kind of is because they're canceling it after fourth, but you know what I mean. It's not like that's it, it's done now. They'll say, okay, you have 10 more episodes to complete the story. So it's kind of like the pros and cons. And I'm just, at the end of the day, I just have to see it as a fan that I'm glad we're going to get those 10 episodes.
As you mentioned, Michael Cudlett's being moved up to no problem. I got you there on the name. Being moved up to
Michael
season.
Chiklis for some reason. I knew that.
That's right. Okay. As soon as I saw it, I was tempted to do the same thing. So I understand. Those of us who remember the Shield or the Commish. I mean, I'm just dating myself there. But he'll be becoming the a series regular. Others, the actor who went to, or the actors who played, say, Lana Long, Kyle Cushing, Sarah Cushing, Chrissy Beppo, as well as Natalie Irons. They're all going to be reduced to the guest starring. And yes, I think with the focus on Lex Luthor, and certainly recently in the current season, the buildup that they had for not only his initial appearance, but what's setting up for the season finale, there's an expectation that he's going to carry that storyline, is going to carry the show through those final 10 episodes. So definitely a bittersweet feeling, I think, overall. Looking forward to seeing how it plays out. I'm hopeful that those other actors still get to make some promising final marks, get final appearances, and that we get to see them appear in other ways. I don't know, other great projects. With that in mind, transitioning into our comic book news, we have a couple for you. We're going to knock through them. First off, DC announcing a new Batman and Beyond series. We're bringing this one from Comic Book, letting us know that we've got Colin Kelly, Jackson Lansing returning to the world of Neo Gotham alongside artist Max Dunbar, Terry McGinnis. Boy, he just doesn't stop, huh? I mean, that's kind of the deal when you take on the mantle. It never ends, right? What do you think about the announcement? And, doesn't it feel like for a couple of these stories, Steve, you should be here? All right, with that, Brad, what's your thoughts, my friend?
Well, with a title like Neo Gothic, it sounds very Hot Topic, which I admit I kind of dig. The last Batman Beyond series was really well received and really loved by fans as well. So I think I've mentioned this before, we may have talked about the sequel series in passing, and I think that if they struck gold with that first series, why not keep continuing it? It seems like Batman Beyond's a very popular character, especially for this generation of creatives in the industry. A lot of them were introduced to these characters through the TV shows like Batman the Animated Series and Batman Beyond. So, if anything, Batman Beyond is more relevant now than has been for a while. So, I think it makes sense to continue. I'm looking forward to reading it. What about you?
Looks like a really interesting series. A lot of excitement there. Loving the quick cover shots there. And then we've got a really fun variant dropping in as well. Also getting a kick out of the fact that we'll get to discover more about Kyle the Catboy and some other things about this very interesting plot, children missing, City's old bones coming into play. There's always something that gets murky and dangerous when you get into Gotham's history, right? As we've discovered through so many great projects, like learning about the Court of Owls, or more recently, a couple of the Batman series that have really taken a trip back through history and shown us, hey, here's something you didn't know, and it might just change everything you thought you knew about. So I'm excited to see how they can show us some new ideas when it comes to Batman Beyond. I'm also excited for the fact that, with our Dawn of DC, that we're getting this attention placed on other characters. Like, for example, we've got news that Hawkgirl will be getting a new partner in her upcoming DC solo series. Got some gorgeous looking art to just kind of drool over there. Really fun stuff. Brad, what'd you think about Hawkgirl getting her own series? Some of the things they mentioned to us about her nemesis, and also a new character known as Galaxy. Am I right? It's a Galaxy?
Yeah. Now, this is where the hive mind comes in, because you said that with this Dawn of DC, they're bringing these kind of lesser known or lesser utilized characters. Hawkgirl is perfect for that. It's a great choice. I can't remember the last time there was a Hawkgirl series, so it's nice to have her back. And the premise seems cool. That now that the Justice League's disbanded, she's got to start over kind of in Metropolis, and this new villain comes looking for the metal that her wings are made of. And the creative team, yes, Galaxy, who you may have read the Galaxy, the Prettiest Star, young like the YA graphic novel that came out a while ago, and DC has knocked it out of the park with those YA books, as we always talk about. And the fact that creative team, like the writer, is coming back for this and bringing the character in, that's great. I look forward to that. So, this is another one. Like, these are the, talk all you want about the Flash losing money, but it's stories I think like this where I come and say what I always say, and that it's a great time to be a DC fan. And it's books like this that I think keep that ringing true. What about you?
I definitely agree that when you've got the chance to see a Hawkgirl series, and I love putting up the pictures instead of my face, lovely variant, that you have an opportunity to expand what might not be as well known for these characters who aren't as utilized as often as you pointed out. But I also love the fact that when you've got a character with some rich history like this who understands some really interesting ideas, like what it's like to be reincarnated, and how well I feel Robert Venditti did with the great Hawkman series recently. This is a great opportunity to not only highlight how amazing Kendra Saunders has been, but also then to use that as a perfect way to fold in a new character like Galaxy. Haven't had a chance to read The Prettiest Star yet, heard only good things and high praise. So love the idea that for anyone else who might have missed it, this is your opportunity. Learn about the character, get invested, get a chance to learn more about a character you might know a little bit about, and now you have a chance to really understand through a great series like this. So I'm hopeful for great news. I can definitely see myself picking up that variant. Let's see if I can just hold on to the rest of my money, because there's also the fact that we have the announcement that DC has announced the Batman Day 2023 books. It's not a few. I don't know if it's a lot, but it's certainly something that you can spend plenty of money on. Brad, is it going to be easy to leave any of these off your list, or do you just see yourself bringing them all home?
Well, the one I could probably go without the books that I've already have in some ways, like the Hush, but that Batman '89 special edition seems really cool. But I think that
Tempting.
the one thing that I'm looking forward to the most is the Gargoyle of Gotham. Is that what it's called? That's what I thought. Um,
You
that
got it.
that it looks like it's going to be a really cool book. We talked about that. I believe it was last week. And just it's the concept where Bruce Wayne decides to kill Bruce Wayne and just completely disappear, yeah, into the Batman persona. Seems like a really cool premise. So that to me, that's the one that I'm looking forward to the most. What about you?
There has been plenty of interest about that story. I mean, it sounds like one of those questions that people always ask, like, why bother with the other persona and why not just totally devote? And interesting, what is it that drives someone over that line and then decides that they want to try and follow that through as long and as far as possible? It sounds like a really interesting deep dive into what it means to be Batman full time and potentially just how unhealthy I'm sure that can become when you're an agent of vengeance, constantly seeking, and you suddenly no longer have to deal with budgeting time for that civilian life. Who knows just how dark the world can look when you're only seeing it through, the eyes of the protector. Keeping in mind the fact that we're not done with Batman, we've got the announcement that Nicolas Cage is appearing as Superman on a DC cover. Um, this is in connection with Batman Superman World's Finest. Yes, we've got imagery. Yes, that's the picture. Brad, what's your response, my friend? One, Flicky Fashions weighing in. How we feeling? Thoughts,
See,
feelings?
my thing is, I like the costume, but I don't get the short hair. Uh, Nick Cage's Superman has had long hair. That's the whole thing. So I don't
Where's my
get
mullet?
why I don't get the short hair. That doesn't make any sense. I mean, I like the cover itself, but I don't get the short hair. That's my takeaway. What about you?
I like the cover. It's great. I totally agree with the short hair thing. And also, I don't think he needs the one with the end. Let's throw him in a Superman suit. Let's quit screwing around. Let's have a good time with it. But for whatever reason, they chose not to hear our hive mind, and that's fine. Maybe sometimes we're just a buzzing sound, but maybe sometimes the buzzing sound leads to the right direction because, oh my goodness, the next story. Man, I mean, I want this to happen. We've got CBR.com saying in an exclusive interview with the writer known as Priest, someone who has done amazing work on projects like Deathstroke and Black Adam, wants to write Power Girl series. Oh my, oh my, that just sounds like magic. What did you think about this idea? And how soon can we make it happen?
Yeah, I love the idea. Especially right now with this dawn of DC, where they can bring these, like we were saying, lesser utilized characters, and in the hand of somebody like Priest, and he mentions that he's kind of wanting to step away from the character types that he's written in the past and wants to try something new. Power Girl would be perfect for that. And she doesn't have to be all bright. She's got her own like inner struggles. So I think he could do a lot with the character, and I think that DC should listen and let him do a series for the dawn of DC and see what happens.
I love the idea of the fact that he is aware that there's a perception of him as a type, someone who writes the darker characters, and doing things in that vein where they feel like he's done certain ones so well. But then he also points out that there were some pressures about trying to make U.S. Agent this really sort of obnoxious, annoying character and feeling pressure from Marvel, who had too many departments trying to weigh in, describing instead how he's really interested in going in a lighter tone and he feels like Power Girl would offer that. um, I love that he goes on to say, I want to be writing Bugs Bunny. You got a Bugs Bunny series? I want to do something else. I want people to think about, or I don't want people to just think Priest only does that one thing, instead showcasing that he's got this versatility. And I think it would be a genius move. I feel like he could bring this perfect level of gravitas to Power Girl, which has always kind of been missing since the Bwahaha days. And after her history got so twisted up before that, and then it was just like no one really knew what to do with her. I think Priest would know what to do with her. I think it would be a beautiful story. I'm excited for the idea. I also know that, who knows? We make enough noise, and I think he's got enough clout. I'm hopeful it could happen. I love the idea of it. I also love that our final comic book story is that DC is officially debuting Wonder Woman's new daughter, Trinity. She made the official debut in this week's Wonder Woman number 800, a story leading into the new Wonder Woman series. Brad, what did you think about this, revelation of Trinity?
I picked up issue 800 over the weekend. Haven't
Nice.
had a chance to read it yet, but I like this, knowing this now going in before I read it, that it's kind of setting up the new series, which is great because I love Tom King. And the fact that she's in the future, she's the Justice League leader with Jonathan Kent and Damian Wayne. Um, I think that's a cool concept. But yeah, I think my main thing about this is that the character seems interesting, and I love that it's leading into Tom King's series because I can't wait to see what he does with the book. So yeah, I'm definitely. In fact, I might when I get a chance tonight before I go to bed, I might read it quicker than I was going to because I want to see exactly um, how this could lead into the new series. What about you?
It's pretty exciting. I have that on my pull list. I'll be picking it up the next time I make it down to the shops. We'll see how soon I can pull that off. I think this is a really interesting character. I'm intrigued to see Tom King bring that into the fold. I'm also interested in the little teasers offered from the story. As it points out with this great image, what do you do when it's not the golden lasso, but instead the black lasso, which sounds like a really interesting device and could be a really great way to tell some really original stories. I think it's a great setup for just sort of what we can enjoy about the excitement and possibility of Dawn of DC and the willingness of DC to really push beyond what's been known about these characters and build new things and, you know, essentially try to do a little bit more, take some risks. Who knows what can happen? Jonathan Kent was an amazing gift. If we can have other examples like that, let's continue to do so. This is the future of DC we're talking about. I love the investment. I also love that it's on such a positive note that I shift this into gear and I'm like, wow, our other story leads off with a Todd McFarlane Blue Beetle statue. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Brad, what do you think? Like, at what point do you see this on your shelf?
Yeah, I mean, I, I always say it all the time, of course, but the detailing on that. There's some of those pictures look like it could be a still from the movie. That that's pretty incredible. And maybe you get that kind of photorealism with this because there's no actual face; it's under a mask, and maybe that even helps with that. Not they're great at. Don't get me wrong; they're great at sculpting faces, but there's something that this even looks more like a photo than some of the other McFarlane toys. It's incredible. I wish I had these when I was growing up. These are the toys that I wanted.
I still wish I had these. There's a part of me that wishes I could have one of those rooms, and just get the shelves and just put all the stuff up and walk in there and hang out, put on some cool music and be like, yeah, isn't that gorgeous? And isn't that great? You know what? At some point, I want this to be a museum. Just give me a museum where people bring their collections and we all get to just drool because what else can you do? Now, unfortunately, as with every good, there can sometimes be some disappointing news. In the other category as well, we have the announcement that DC Dual Force has canceled their beta weekend. Um, this sort of falls apart for me. It's a game, it's PC. I don't game. Help, Brad.
I can see why. I'm sure the company thought it was a bummer, but it's almost good to get this stuff out of the way, put it out there. Let people play it. Oh, look, we have problems. Okay, you know what? We got to fix this. We got to fine tune it. We'll be back. I think that that's more than any other medium. Video games do that, and I think at the end of the day, it's to the medium's benefit that they do because they can fine tune these things. So yeah, it's a bummer that you didn't get to play it, but when you do get to play it, it's going to be a better game. So it is what it is.
I did like in this comic book story how they were describing the response from the game makers is like, hey, look, we value your time and we feel there's too many bugs for you to be able to enjoy this well enough to even get the gameplay that can tell us what's working or not. If it's hiccuping so much, it You simply can't get far enough to tell us what's wrong because these other things are getting in the way. So I can understand the smart sort of strategy there of like, hey, our goal isn't to frustrate you. Our goal is to give you a beta you can enjoy most of and let us know when the bugs pop up. I also think it's part of the fact that, hey, in the meantime, should you have a Nintendo Switch and you feel like enjoying the Batman Arkham trilogy, guess what? While you're waiting for this bug to get fixed over here with the Dual Force, hop on over. Or if you've got one or want to get one and need a reason, grab the Switch. Batman Arkham trilogy is now available in its entirety. Again, I don't have one, but Brad, this sounds like a big thing. Am I right?
I think it's great because those are three of my favorite games of all time. I just love them. And what I personally like about this collection is that it comes with all the DLC. So it comes with all the bonus content that was released after. So it is like a truly complete package. Because there's a Robin story, there's a Batgirl story. I think a Harley Quinn side story, things like that that pop up, and uh, I would almost say hundreds of hours of play that you can get out of these games. And the Switch, if you want to take it with you on the run, play it on the bus, on your commute if you take a bus, just on your lunch break. I mean, it's perfect. Had I not played these games already, I'd have gone out and already picked this up and been ecstatic about it. But I think the Switch is a perfect console for these now, and I think it's going to lead a lot of people to rediscover the games. So yeah, if you have a Switch, definitely go out and play these games. They're great.
Now, I don't know if this is going to be the argument to swing my wife to be like, yeah, we're getting one. But if there is one, this could be it. Now, to let you know, it's not available quite yet. It's coming out sometime in the fall. We don't have the release date yet, but they're expecting a price of around maybe $60. More details to follow, something to look forward to. And if it helps, cushion the blow of the disappointment about Dual Force, that's what we're here to do,
And
right?
it's a great value because each one of those games individually cost 60 when they came out. Not only the $20 here and there for the DLC, so you're getting a great deal on those games.
Yeah, what a great way to wrap things up, Brad. Thank you so much for being my amazing cohort and always keeping me on track. I swear to you folks, if it wasn't for this guy, I would fall apart doing this, and I'm grateful for it. Brad, if others should be looking for your wisdom, fashion or otherwise, where can the good people find you? How can they get to know you?
You can find me writing news reviews, DC Comics News. I occasionally drop some reviews over at Josh's other site, Mark with the Movie Blog. So also on the, and I say it every week, I'm going to say it again until we get back to recording it, the Harley Quinn Mad Love Podcast, part of the DC Comics News Podcast Network. So, yeah, that's where you can find me. You can follow me on Twitter at WikiB1. Where can people find you?
Hey man, they can find me. I do have some reviews, and I was lucky enough to spend a couple of years hosting the Spinner Rack, so you can always check out my picks from back then. You can also find me, sort of out there in the world. I've been really grateful. I write a character named Greedy Greg for a company called Hapsy, and they recently switched their format to these sort of prestige format, thinner comic books. I'm getting them monthly now. There's even a new one in which my guy, Greedy Greg, decides to wear a cone as a hat. We've got a fun story from him. If you're interested in that, check out hapsy.com. I'm writing stuff there. I've got other comics coming out I can't wait to tell you about. Find me on social media like One More Singleton on Twitter, Set the Writer on Instagram. More importantly, here's how you make sure you're always in the know. Wherever you're listening to us right now, subscribe. Go onto your favorite social media platform. Type in the @ symbol, DC Comics News, capital D, capital C, OMICS, capital NEWS. Say hello. Tag us with your favorite stories. Respond to these stories. Let us know what you like and you don't like. Maybe I've got a terrible voice and tell me to stop hosting. I'm fine with that. I can live with that. Maybe it's my breath, which if you can smell, I'm sorry. And also, you're weird. No, I love you guys. I'm grateful that we're here. We're grateful that we have you. If you're already subscribed on the podcast, don't forget, we also do video. You can check us out on YouTube. You can also Find us on places like Instagram, Tumblr, Twitter, Facebook. It's the @ symbol in DC Comics News. Use that for everything. And in the meantime, make sure that you're always in the know for great stuff like I Am the Night, the Batman the Animated Series, episode by episode breakdown from Steve J. Ray. Lovely, wonderful, crazy good times on Mad Love, the Harley Quinn podcast that we did. And yes, we will at some point one day pick up Brad. I can only say we're going to figure it out. I don't know how. And with that, we only have one last thing to remind you of what you can do between now and the next episodes when you get to see us coming back with all the great stories we love to share with you. And that is to always
read
more
comics.
Oh, did you hear that? Oh, it was so good. You know what? I'm ending on a strong note. We're stopping recording. Bum, 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 bum.